Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to another episode of Soul Over Matter podcast. I'm your host, Michelle, and today we have on Katelyn Annemarie. She is a holistic business coach, founder of Nurtured Marketing, and two-time best-selling author. Katelyn, welcome to Soul Over Matter. How are you today?
I'm doing so good. I'm so excited to be here today, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm excited for our chat. How are you feeling? When are we recording? It just turned to Scorpio season. So how is that fall energy, that Vata energy feeling for you?
Well, Vata always makes me feel very creative. And as somebody who has two businesses, and like you said, I've been an author, I do a lot of creative things. It's one of my favorite seasons in a lot of ways. And also, it can be a little dysregulating because it makes me sometimes too creative, but we're feeling good. We're feeling grounded.
I know what you mean. I feel like
Yeah,
I've
how
never
is it
heard
for
that
you?
said, but it's true. It's like almost too many ideas, too much flowing, and like, where's the groundedness? Can
Mhm.
you talk more about how you came to be a holistic business coach and like what that means?
Yeah, it's a very fun story. I always like to start it with the interesting truth of the matter, which is that I never saw myself starting a business, and my first business was a complete accident. You and I had connected back in 2018 over this book that I had written 4 years ahead of time. September 2014, I published a children's book that taught families of children with cognitive disabilities how to use sign language to bridge the communication gap. And I was so passionate about getting it out into the world that I learned everything I could. I mean, I read so many books in the span of 1 year just about marketing. And I didn't see myself going in that direction until I met my first mentor who was like, "You need to do something with this. You're very good at this." And then in the span of a couple of months, I was finding myself as a independent contractor with multiple clients, all small businesses in the area I was living at the time in upstate New York. I am New York born and raised and now live in Colorado for for reference.
That New York energy we got, girl.
Yeah. And I think this is another thing that we bonded over, is just being little wandering, adventure filled entrepreneurs who were born and raised in New York. Hello. Um, yeah, and so that was 2014. After that, I got more into the marketing world, but I was really afraid of being a business owner, to be totally honest. I was in my early to mid 20s and I was like, this sounds very challenging. What's an EIN? Like, how do I do my taxes? What about health insurance? All the questions. And so right at the point that I should have probably hired my first employee and really gone for it. Like, we had gotten that busy. I sort of chickened out. And I met another mentor who had a startup and hired me full time to direct their marketing department and play a really big role in getting the business off the ground. And so that was really fun. And I did that for a while. And then I started to come into more of my own with healing from burnout and anxiety and depression. And starting in 2013, I started practicing yoga, and a couple years later got into EFT, and a couple years after that Ayurveda, and I got my yoga teacher training, and the whole thing. And then I wound up starting a holistic business, and I was helping people with Ayurveda, with yoga, with EFT, with all these different modalities, and it just continued to spiral. And I think we're going to talk more about like how your dharma gets to unfold for you, but I love sharing this story for that case. In fact, it's like I wound up then seeing that I could do both, be the marketer and be the healer. And I started my coaching business in 2015. doing holistic business coaching, blending Ayurveda, blending mindfulness and leadership into business and structure and pricing your offers and marketing yourself online. And my goal was to help people that help people. And that's what I do today. And it's evolved now into two businesses. So that's how I got here. I can say so much more about that, like the mission behind it, but um, that's a summary, as short as I can make it.
Oh, I love it. You could be as long as you want here, but I love that. Yeah. And I love how you started it out, right? You're like, I like created a business by accident. So can you talk more to that of maybe someone listening to this episode, right, who's afraid, who's scared, who has ideas, who knows what, knows deep down what they need or what they want to share with the world, but they're too afraid of it.
Yeah, I speak to people like that very often because of what I do, right? I run um, private coaching programs, I do consulting, I do local networking and workshops and things like that. And I always find that people who are in that position, they'll say that, and they'll also say something to the effect of, but I just can't see myself doing anything else. Like I can't see myself working for
Mm,
somebody else. That they might have something specific, like I can't see myself in corporate, or I can't see myself here. So it just, something's clicking for them at this point if they're resonating with that question, where you probably know that there's something more for you. You have something you're deeply passionate about, or that there is something that you're going to be deeply passionate about. And you're kind of maybe in that overly creative space where you're like, it could be this, and it could be that, just like Vata season, like I mentioned before. It's a little debilitating. And yeah, I know what it's like to be there. And when you know that you're not meant to do things the way that other people are doing it, you have to ask high quality questions in order to get high quality results. Tony
mm,
Robbins says something very similar to that. I heard that line from Mary Morrissey many years ago, and it's so true. Like, ask yourself, well, if it's not this, then what is it? Or what does feel good? What does feel right? Because you can create literally anything. We're living in such an incredible age where, like, technology can run a business for you like 90% of the way, and you just invest in it and it invests in you and it nurtures you back. You can get so much support in your community. Like, there's so many more entrepreneurial people in this day and age that are ready to, like, put together a community and build, a retreat center together. I see this stuff all the time. So find your people, find your purpose, and go for it and trust it, because another quote here that
mhm.
I love, Marie Forleo says, everything is figure outable. You'll figure out the health insurance, you'll figure out the taxes, you'll figure out how to incorporate and what way to incorporate and all of that stuff. Like, it's very, it gets to be more simple than you think it has to be. The reason I didn't start sooner was because I thought it was way more complicated than it actually turned out to be.
Mm. Yeah, it's that like analysis paralysis, right? Like we just get so into our heads, like it's not going to work out. What's the point of trying, right? But like that's being an entrepreneur, right? That's being a business owner. You're like, I don't know what's going to happen. And that's some of the fun of it, right? And you shared finding our purpose, right? And our dharma. What is dharma? I don't think I've talked about dharma yet on Soul Over Matter.
It feels very fitting for Soul Over Matter. So I'm excited that this is like the first episode that we're talking about it. Yeah, Dharma is one of the four Purusharthas in yogic philosophy. And so the Purusharthas are aims of life. And one is your needs, like your basic needs, one's your desires, one is your liberation, your freedom. Um, and then the fourth is your Dharma and your purpose. And
Mhm.
so the way it's translated is, it's a process of like fulfillment, like you giving to the world in a way that allows you to feel like you're making an impact. and something that really gives you purpose, like gives your life meaning.
Mm. Yeah. And I'm having deja vu as we're talking. This is cool. It's what's coming to mind for me is I'm sure you get this as well, right? Clients that are like, I don't know what my purpose is. I haven't found it yet. Like it's a penny or it's something, to
Mhm.
find in our closet, but it's within us. Like, can you talk more to that, like about what that dharma is, how to channel it, how to move into that energy of it rather than trying to find it?
I totally want to hear more of your thoughts on this, especially with
Yeah.
the channeling piece. But I feel like we agree on this. It's that you're not gonna go out there and find it. It's not a penny you're gonna pick up off the sidewalk and be like, "Okay, I've got my dharma, let's go."
The
And, like, frolic off into the wilderness after that, like,
dharma's found. We're good.
Um, for me, and I love that we get to start with that story, but for me, it felt more like an unfolding in the
Mm,
earlier years, and in later years of my career, I feel that it's a deepening. Um, so I've described it differently at two different points because I think in the beginning, you're like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and you're like, well, this is part of it, and that's part of it, and this is part of it. I didn't think that doing the marketing for this children's book, I wanted to get into publishing. I was gonna like live in Manhattan and work in the publishing industry. I didn't see marketing as part of my end goal at all.
mm,
Um, it was just something that it really took me by surprise. And then yoga, I mean, the first time I went to yoga for like any holistic healing, it was probably right after high school. And I think I went for a week and then I was like, "Meh, this is a crock of shit. This didn't do anything." I'm like,
I
that
don't
didn't
feel
help
I don't feel
me.
much. I love it. I love it.
And then years later, I found a different practice. I started with Bikram and then I wound up in Hatha and I was like, wow, whoa, what's happening with my body, my mind, my soul? It all feels so different, and in that respect, I think it's when you're younger, it's an unfolding. You're getting to know yourself.
Mm,
You're getting to try on different things and see how they feel. And I think one thing that because we live in such a linear society in the sense of like society has a lot of linear perspectives, right? A lot of categorization, a lot of this fits here and it doesn't fit here.
mhm,
It actually, that way of thinking makes it very difficult for us to find our purpose because we think it's just one thing rather than, well, what if marketing and healing came together? Like I was standing with one foot in the holistic healing world, seeing a lot of my colleagues struggling to make enough money or to take off from work or to eat the kind of food they wanted or take the vacation they wanted because they didn't know how to market themselves and they didn't know how to make the kind of income that they needed. Whereas my foot was in the other door where I was marketing for like companies that did business loans and like uh, finance and all of this stuff, like a lot of random businesses that they were making so much money, but they were burnt out and they needed the holistic healing and the holistic healing needed the business, right? And so if I was looking through the perspective that society often tells us to look through, I would have chosen one or the other. And for many years, I felt like I had to.
mm.
But you get to bring it all together. And for me, a lot of that was curiosity, but I'm curious to hear your position of like channeling it. I think at some points I was channeling it, but it definitely was more of like I'm a 3-5 in human design, so it was like
Oh, me
trial
too.
and error. Oh, yeah, my trial and error was a big part of finding my
You,
purpose.
me, and Bridget. Bridget's the same, I think. She's been on Soul Over Matter. I'm like, wow, we're all the same. It's like throw spaghetti at the wall. Oh, it sticks. Okay, I'll try this for a little bit.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's what you said, right, about living in this linear world, and so many of us are creatives, and I actually truly do believe deep down all of us are creative, right? But, like, that part of our life isn't nurtured for most of us, and I love that your company is called Nurtured Marketing, like, it's just so warm and so projector of you of, like, nurtured marketing, because it does it your that name bridges those 2 worlds together, and for, yeah, those of us who live more non-linearly, right? And most women do naturally because of our cycles. So to try to find, right? Like try to find like, okay, this is my purpose, this is my dharma, and like try to fit the puzzle pieces into the real world, right? Into the muggle world. It's like it's too much. And we don't give ourselves that grace to fall, that grace to trial and error, that grace to say, oh, like to pivot, right? To change. Like you just spoke about your trajectory, your timeline, right? And it's like this constant shifting, this constant changing. Like I follow you, I see your stories, and you're like, okay, I'm trying something new this year. Like last year didn't work. And to give ourselves that grace to do it, which is
Mhm.
takes a lot of courage, right? And bravery.
Yeah. Yeah, another thing that you sparked in my mind on this is that our school system in the United States doesn't nurture, here's that word again, which I love that you picked up on that. That is why I named it nurtured, and a couple other reasons. But our school systems don't typically nurture that part of ourselves that are going to be curious about the answer. When I was in college, I studied abroad at Oxford and I did a tutoring type of program rather than just being in lectures. I met one to one with a professor, and it was a total shock to my system because I got there and they were like, "What do you want to study?" And I was like, "Well, how about Shakespeare and art history?" And, I think I had one other. And then I got into Shakespeare, and the professor's like, "Which plays do you want to read in Old English and then translate and write an 8-page essay on this week?" And every week I had to write an essay. And every week after I finished the essay, I'd come to class in quotation marks. And the professor would say, "Well, tell me your, tell me the point of your essay. Like, what?" It wasn't that I was bringing it to the professor and he was like, "Well, you're right or you're wrong." He's like,
Mm.
"If you believe you're right, tell me why you believe you're right. And if you have a theory, tell me your theory and why you believe in the theory." And that was a radically different way to see the world because when I was graduating college, what made sense was to become an English professor. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be in publishing. So when I realized I wasn't fully prepared to go into the publishing industry, that's when I wrote the book because I was asking the questions of like, well, if this is where I want to go, like sometimes we only know just a little bit of the path. And I think that's what was happening then. And also, again, as a 3-5, this happens all the time for me where it's like, I don't really know what's going to happen 10 years from now. I know where I want to be, but what can I do now to get there? And so different projects and different trainings and all these things just felt right at the time, and now looking back they all make sense, but in the moment
Mhm.
people who are more traditional definitely were in my life saying, are you sure you should be doing this right now? Don't you think you should be going that way? Shouldn't you just pick one thing? Why are you doing all these things? Like I got a lot of backlash from people who with all good intentions had more of that traditional training of their mindset. And I think this is where those of us who are drawn to words like Dharma and to podcasts like Soul Over Matter, it's so incredibly valuable that you're not thinking from within the box when it comes to finding your
Mm.
purpose.
Wow. Wow, so much there. I mean, that the story of learning in another country. Like you were able to learn from in the US, right? And then to learn in another country and have that energy of what do you think of this? Right? Like that curiosity, that that we're not given in our school system, right? It's like, sit down, these are the rules. You raise your hand to go to the bathroom, you raise your hand to do this, to do that. It's like there is no space for creativity. And as an educator, I've seen it firsthand in the school system, right? It's like the creativity programs are being less, there's not enough budget for these programs that are actually the best for children, right? We're meant to learn, we're meant to grow and experience and experiment. So having that having that experience for you, and then to come back and have friends and family, and we've all been there, right? As entrepreneurs, it's like, are you sure you're going to do that? What do you think? Or, it's like from that place of love, right? But you're like, I think it's like being your best advocate, right? And being your biggest cheerleader, which is so hard in a world that's trying to put us into boxes and put us into, these like little, these little spaces. And we're so multifaceted.
Yeah. Mm. You touched on a lot of really great things in there. Yeah, I think that's one of there's so many challenges when you go all in on your soul's work, and specifically when that means starting a business. And there's so many different challenges that people come to me and share from both a mindset perspective, a leadership perspective, and a business and marketing perspective. And I would say on like the marketing and leadership sides, the biggest challenge is surrounding yourself with the right people and getting in rooms with people who get it, who aren't going to poke at your self doubt. Because let's be honest, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur like pretty much for 10 years now. I've had my coaching business specifically for five, had the marketing agency for a little over a year now. Before that, I was leading my yoga and healing business. Um, there's always going to be the possibility of somebody saying, "Are you sure?" And the most important thing is to cultivate in yourself that sureness, that confidence. But it doesn't mean that even 5, 10, 20 years down the line, you're not going to have moments of doubting, of putting something out there, thinking it's going to be amazing and it's going to be the next best thing that's going to explode your business. And then it might flop. It might not do amazing, or being radically surprised by what does work and then be like, oh my gosh, I'm a totally different person because my business just quadrupled in revenue and I went from 5 clients to 25 clients, like holy guacamole. And you know, either way, whether it's a perceived failure or perceived success, there's going to be that moment of like, am I
Yeah.
okay? What is it like to be here? And you're going to be doing identity work on yourself. And you want to make sure that you keep that sacred and you keep it in a space where people will see the identity that you're stepping into or that you desire to step into, and they are going to encourage it.
Mm. Yeah, and I love your process. We've been, connected for 5 years now, which is like mind-blowing to me. Like time is so wild, but you always share like the realness in your stories. Like, hey guys, I'm actually going through this, and these are like not even strategies, but you just share your process with your clients, with your followers, with your community. And I love that about you, because there is something to say about, social media, right? It's like the highlight reel. It's like we only show the goodness, or we think people only want to see the good stuff, even though the shadow work is the good stuff too, right? So I like, even when you were starting the marketing agency, can you talk more to that, of like that pivot, that shift of your energy and where you wanted it to go?
Mm. Yeah, there were so many things that came up for me, and I'm guessing this podcast will be live, right? You said in the next couple of weeks, and we're going through this eclipse portal, and a friend said to me this morning, she's like, so we're closing out things from November 2021. That's the cycle we're closing.
Hmm.
And whoa.
That resonates. Yep.
Right? I was like, oh, let's see all the places of life. I was like relationship, business, personal life, like where I was living, like what my goals were, what was happening. And that was actually the point when I was like, wow, I created an incredible coaching business and I was asking a lot of questions. And so sometimes the point where we really need to activate our own bravery is when we're asking questions that we're afraid to get the answer to. And I didn't have intentions to start a marketing agency. What's funny about this conversation is that one of the reasons I was afraid to start one was because I thought it was going to be too much for me. And I thought I had to do it how other people were doing it. And to be successful in that industry, I needed to, do this, that, and another thing. And I had mentors who um, did things slightly differently or like still had those struggles and so I was getting all these stories in that respect. And I was like, can I really do this? Um, and do I really want to was a big
Hmm.
question. But I kept looking at my coaching business and I was like, I know that this isn't it for me. I I didn't necessarily start my coaching business and say this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I just knew it was part of the path. And I have five other business ideas. I could probably start more in a couple of years, find something else. And so I knew that there was something else. And then it was just kind of like, well, why would I start this now? Why would it make sense to do it now? And I had realized that through my years of being in coaching, I found another um, problem to solve,
Hmm.
right? When I was leading my healing business, I found a problem to solve. When I was doing marketing as an independent contractor, I found a problem to solve that people needed the bridge between the two. When I was coaching and bridging the two of those, I found that it then broke off into this other space if I was helping people build their businesses to 5-figure months, or one of my clients celebrated a 5-figure sales day that was almost multiple 5 figures, like super exciting stuff. And as you build your business and you're able to have those kinds of resources, you can make more impact and you can hire more people and you can do more good in the world. But one of the problems that people were telling me was that they would hire help and it wasn't the right help. They needed a marketing team that understood spiritual businesses and
Hmm.
like these new heart-centered businesses that aren't just using chat gbt to write their content, but it's really pouring from their souls and it's really their art, and their social media is the main way that they attract clients. Like there are I mean, I don't really know any marketing agencies, and I hired so many people to do this kind of support within my coaching business, but it's so nuanced and it's constantly changing, and the algorithms are changing and the trends are changing, and what feels right for a Akashic Records reader with their marketing feels very different for a holistic business coach or somebody who does creative marketing, or and so what we decided to do was to keep the heart in things, to really personalize, to customize, and to keep the social and social media when we do our marketing. I was just on a call with a potential business partner this morning, and she was like, so your company does engagement. Do you hire bots? And I was like, no, because we are so smart. We're so used to bots. Nobody answers them. Nobody wants to answer them.
Hmm.
Like, there are certain ways that, yes, we can use technology to take our time back and to make more money, and we can automate so many things. But we've seen so many ways that those automations have taken the humanness out of it. And so Nurtured called to me because I wanted to find that solution. I wanted to create the solution. And I had run my coaching business for so long. And I was like, I just want a team that is trained for this, to do this for me. And so many people echoed the same. So it really made sense in a lot of ways, but I wouldn't want to convey it in this podcast that it was an easy choice, because there were so many leadership initiations, just the trust that I could hold to businesses, the trust that I could break into another industry and totally change the way it's often run. Like, that's part of why I'm here, is to change the way we do business. And I think that because marketing is a bit older than the coaching industry, it was very intimidating for me. So there was a lot that came through, and also just so many signs. I'm a very spiritual person. So many signs came through. And it was also like we were talking earlier about the people who are in that space where they're like, I want to do this thing. How do I get myself to do it? I'm scared. I was in that same position. And again, I had 7 or 8 years of entrepreneurial experience under my belt. And I was still like, I want to do this thing and I'm really scared, but I can't ignore it. There's no other option. We have to do it. So here we go.
And a year in, how do you feel reflecting on that Katelyn, right, who started, who was scared shitless and did it anyway?
Mm, I feel really grateful to her. Yeah, big time. I feel so, so grateful to her. And I still have that really deep knowing. Like, I think that's an important thing to emphasize, is that I have this deep knowing in my bones that this business is going to make such a big impact, and it's going to help so many businesses so that they can help more people. And there's definitely days that I'm like, ah, what's happening? This
What am I
right.
doing? Who am I?
And
I
I
think
just
that should
come
just be
right
like a
back.
tagline for all entrepreneurs. It's like, what am I doing today? Like, what is my life? I don't know. Let's throw in the
Existential
towel.
crisis. Yeah. But it sounds so morbid, but it's also like, wow, how freaking powerful to choose over and over again who you're going to be in the world, who you're going to show up as, what you're going to create, and to create it from scratch. Like, I'm so grateful to that version of myself, because not only is she the reason I'm here today doing, like, we are supporting absolute dream clients, like companies that are doing incredible things in the world. Like, we work with retreat hosts and certification leaders. And so we're really like creating the ripple effect by helping
Hmm.
them. They're able to help more people. Um, but I'm really grateful. One thing that stands out in this moment, reflecting on it, is the support that I got for myself through that. I had an incredible coach through that period of time. She wasn't a business coach, just for the record. She was very much focused on like leadership, and actually hired her to heal like some relationship wounds. And it turned into like healing relationship wounds within my business. And when I was really like, it was like a make or break moment. I remember talking to her and being like, I just have this voice in my head that I'm going to take on too much. I'm going to burn out, and then I won't be able to help anyone at all. And I remember her looking at me and asking this really great question. She said, whose voice is that?
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's not mine. That's my mom, my dad. That's a teacher that I had that warned me I was doing too much. And it was all valuable in those moments, but it was coming in at a time that it was holding me back and not serving as medicine.
Wow. Yeah, the inner critic, right? I've heard that too. It's like the inner critic is in us. We're all pure souls. The inner critic comes in, or the gremlin they call, everyone has like a different name, right? But it could have been that teacher who said something in fifth grade, who knows, right? Or a parent. And I also love what you said about the connection between your personal relationship wounds and then those wounds within your business, right? Because as entrepreneurs as well, like everything supports everything. So we don't compartmentalize our business, even though we try to. It becomes part of our whole world, honestly. It's not like, okay, I just clock in today at the office and I come back home and I'm good. It's like it's part of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a client in the marketing agency whose language on that was the ecosystem.
Mm,
And just like if there was an invasive plant, if there's one in your mind, it's hurting the ecosystem. And so you have to relocate it.
I like that. Yeah. Wow. So okay, so you nurtured marketing and you still do holistic business coaching as well, or yeah. So
Yeah,
those are your two
so
big businesses that you're like, I can't do both. I can't do both. And here you are a year later doing both.
yeah, doing both. Yeah. And it did, like, I had to change a number of things. It wasn't just that I added on a second business and I doubled my hours. Like, that doesn't work as a visionary, as an entrepreneur, as a CEO. You cannot just double your input and double your output. I mean, you can, don't get me wrong, but you're only going to double. You're not going to triple, quadruple, or 10x if you're just putting more effort in. So I had to
Mm,
restructure the first business and restructure some of the programs, some of the ways that I was working with clients. I released some offerings. At that point, I was a couple of years into business, so I built out a pretty broad offering suite, and I had a lot of different things there. And so I had to reshift my focus to selling self-study courses, making more passive incomes, um, being mindful with how much time I was putting in there, how much time I was spending with coaching clients. I had to get more selective with like private clients, and then being mindful of that as I added on the marketing agency. It wasn't necessarily like I built the marketing agency the way I would have if I only had that as my business.
mm.
So it's been a very interesting year, like reflecting on just all the call them plot twists.
Yes.
Yeah, and all the flexibility and things that I had to really just play around with and be open to changing and trust, like lots and lots of trust.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing it's beautiful. It's like the nitty-gritty, right? That it's not easy, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And something I love too is how you shared how it's so nuanced. You haven't seen a marketing agency out there, so you have no comparison. Like you're literally creating that canvas for the world, honestly, to like bridge these two worlds together. And it's what do they say? It's like the first 5 years in business is like that real, yeah, like trial and error. Like, let's see what sticks, let's see what works. So I'm excited to see how it evolves and how it grows and just the energy you pour into it. It's really beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, I am excited too. I'm excited to see what evolves and what grows here.
Yeah. Well, Caitlin, thank you for sharing your wisdom as always and sharing your processes. And yeah, where can people find you? Where can people work with you?
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to connect. I am definitely my favorite platform is Instagram. So I'm an Instagram girly. My handle is Katelyn Annemarie _ Annemarie. Well, actually, I should spell Caitlin too, because everyone always asks for both. There's so many ways to spell it. It's KatelynAnnemarie_. You can also look up my website, KatelynAnnemarie.com, or you can look up nurturedmarketingagency.com. And yeah, I do both. You can schedule a 30-minute consultation with me or a team member. We do private sessions if you just wanted strategy and consulting. Um, we also have group programs through coaching at Katelyn Annemarie and done for you services for social media marketing and email marketing. We build funnels and all that good stuff that you probably, if you're feeling called to that, you're like, oh, take that away. I don't want to do it anymore. Or, I don't have the time. Please, please. So yeah, I'd love to connect, reach out, and I'm just so grateful that I got to be here. You have an incredible community, and I always love the talks that you have on here. So I'm excited to be added to your repertoire.
Yeah. And you do in person as well. You started that as well this year, right? Are you still
Yeah,
doing
this
that?
year, this year I got an office at an incredible holistic well-care market here in Denver. And so I also offer in-person sessions.
Oh, that sounds yummy. I feel like I remember when you said that you were like, "Ah, we've been online for so long," and just to be in person doing that same work, it must have been, yeah, really a really nice pivot and shift for you.
Yeah, for me and my community, like I was already getting questions from people like, I want to meet in person. I want to hug. I want to like giggle with you in
Oh.
real life. And I was like, I want to do that too. And so I'm happy that we have a home for it now as well. And virtual is great. I'm so grateful because I get to connect with clients in like the UK and, across the globe, or people who can't make it into the office for some reason. So we got both. We love both.
Amazing. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.